Bad news, people, it's happened again. Every single time I do a project, I say that it's never going to become a project that I work on at early hours. However, I have now got a deadline of by 2024, I need to move in, which I really am struggling to see how that's actually possible because as you can see, I have got quite a lot of work to do and it is very enjoyable work. However, in hindsight, I'm not sure what I was really doing during summer, not getting on with all of this stuff because it's now -4 degrees, everything is frozen and I am freezing. Very rare piece of health and safety advice from me that if you wear gloves and you're using drills and things, it will often lead to your fingers getting snapped. When you're starting off a screw, you can sometimes get the glove caught in the barb, and with an impact driver, which have the same torque as like a stage 3 or a 6, yeah, your fingers can get snapped clean off. It's not funny. Now, some of you might be wondering what I am doing with this ladder and the fact that, as a lot of you have noticed, I am damaging it and it's not something that I wanted to do. I mean, this ladder cost 120 quid and I am drilling through it. I'm using a pilot hole, and if you don't know what a pilot hole is, you just get a drill bit, drill through the OSB and into the metal, and that allows you to then screw normal wood screws into metal. And the important thing to remember is if you've got a 5.0, a 5mm screw, you need to remember to have a slightly smaller drill bit. And the reason for that is so that the main part of the screw can go through the pilot hole, but the actual twisty corkscrewy bit of the screw kind of mushes its way through it, and that will save you a lot of money so you don't have to get metal piercing screws. Now, the reason why I've added OSB and a thin layer of foam to a ladder is because I have got to install these skylights on my own, and therefore I have two options. I do what I did the other day, which is move a skylight on my own, and I will never do that again because it's not just the weight aspect of it. Obviously they're insanely heavy, but it's because of the shape. They're 2 meters 20 by 80 centimeters on the outside, and you're holding a thin pane of glass, so all of that weight is going straight onto your hand, and it is so unbelievably painful and also extremely sketchy. Now, the vision in my head is that I can very easily now lower a skylight onto the ladder and kind of use the ladder as a sort of stretcher carrying thing to then drag the skylights to each window. And then, well, the next part, I've then got to lift them into place, which can only go well. I really do not see what could possibly go wrong. There's a lot that could go wrong because as I'm lifting it up, if I haven't made the outstand correct and they don't fit, I will have used all of my strength to get them into place. And if they don't fit the window, then 100% is just going to fall on me. And that will be the end of this channel. I really hope this works because I just do not want to break a skylight. I mean, one of them arrived broken. The company's been very good and are sending a replacement. The only issue with that is they did say something that kind of annoyed me. They were like, oh, we'll send you a new one immediately, but if you do want to keep your one, we can give you a discount, and don't worry, that chip won't affect any of the thermal efficiency of the window. Now, currently that is true, but at a later date, when the window eventually shatters into pieces, then the thermal efficiency will be pretty bad, and the amount of cost to fix it, buying a new 400 quid skylight, doing all of the works around installing it, all the flashing would have to get done, all of that stuff, well, that would far exceed the discount. And remember, most people are nice. They really are. I'd say it's a good majority of people. However, the reason this person would be doing that is the cost for them to send someone out to come and collect the old skylight and then to send another lorry with a new skylight on it. All of that costs a lot more than if I were to just accept a discount. So that's the reason people often will say something like that. And I've asked two people who are in the glass industry if it would be okay to install it as is, and they were like, honestly, just don't even bother, because think about what happens on glass. When it's cold outside, the glass will get super cold, and then in the morning, as soon as sun hits it, it'll start to defrost. And if there's any tiny chance that that could have some sort of splintering moment, well, yeah, it would be a real nightmare. Now, onto a slightly more positive note, it is time to start putting the floor down. As I said in the previous video, the plan is to try and do the back section of the plywood subfloor. Now remember, the floor system that I'm using goes plywood, insulation, tongue and groove. Now this is very over the top. You do not need to do this, but for what I want to do, I think it's going to work. The first thing that is really important, and it's a little bit boring to do, but it is just have a tidy up. Again, just pick up all of the rubbish, because once the floor is down, you will not be able to access this area. And so have a proper look to make sure you haven't dropped anything that you need, like a tape measure. Now another thing that I'm doing is just having a final flatten of the soil and taking away any random high spots from where the soil has settled. And another thing you've really got to keep an eye out for is any high spot that is coming into direct contact with the underside of your floor joist. Now this shouldn't happen, but maybe you forgot that you chucked a bucket of soil somewhere, and you really need to catch this now, because as I said, once the floor is down, you are not going to be able to access this. So just do it now. And the reason why you can't have any soil touching the floor joist is the moisture from the ground can then access the timber, and that will start rotting, in comparison to how it's kind of set up at the moment, where the entire frame of the tiny house is sat on foundations, which are concrete pad stones. Those pad stones then have a damp proof membrane, and if you don't know what that is, it literally says it on the tin. It's a damp proofing membrane. The membrane stops the moisture going up through the concrete and into the timber. If it wasn't there, capillary action and all of that stuff would be happening. The water would get into the timber, and within a few years it would start rotting, and your tiny house would start to look like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Honestly, I've said it in quite a few videos recently, but water is actually like the #1 enemy of your house. It is the thing that creates almost all of the problems. But once you've cleared all of the area under the floor, it's actually a very simple system. Now remember, this is a subfloor. What that means is you will not see this floor. It is going under everything else. And the key things to remember are expansion gaps, making sure that the factory edges are perfectly straight over the entire distance of the tiny house. Now what I mean by that is I can almost guarantee whatever you have built is not perfectly square, because mine isn't. Using lasers and being as accurate as I can, it, not that surprisingly, isn't perfectly square. It warps out about 1 centimeter. Therefore, that 1 centimeter error will then stagger the boards as you're going along the length of the tiny house, and therefore you'll get these really big gaps. Now, the gaps aren't really the end of the world, because as I said earlier, you need expansion gaps. If you don't know what an expansion gap is, it's just kind of like a couple of millimeters around the perimeter of the tiny house, and maybe 1 millimeter between the boards, just so when it gets really hot, the timber can expand a little bit. And if you weren't to have this and all of the plywood is pushed right up against each other, when expansion takes place, it wouldn't really warp it because there's so many screws, but what it can lead to is your floor squeaking a little bit because there's so much pressure between the two. Now, unfortunately, that's all the time that I had today at the tiny house. So tomorrow is going to be a very exciting day. I'm going to try and get a ton done. So thanks for watching. Please like the video, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you next tomorrow. See you next tomorrow. Yeah, in a bit.